You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're covering Guam. So, Mackenzie?
Yes, Lauren?
Let's get scary. So, as people here with the Guam, we're kind of moving on to some territories.
We are. Can't be the United States without the territories.
And also, so many people would ask me when we were doing this, they're like, so what happens when you hit all the states? And I was like, well, we'll do them all again. There's more than 2 scary things in most states. Some states we have a little bit harder of a time figuring out.
We'll stretch it.
You know, we'll make it work. We'll figure it out.
We'll be fine. Maybe things will happen between now and then.
Hopefully not horrible things, though.
No, not horrible.
Because, you know, we're true crime and paranormal. Though the true crime hasn't been happening a lot lately.
We've been doing a lot more paranormal.
Yeah, not on purpose. Just seems to be what's happening.
Yeah.
We will get to the true crime, hopefully. Well, you know.
We'll see.
You don't want there to be true crime, but there is true crime.
Yeah.
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 All right, well, if we don't have anything else to talk about, you want to jump into Guam?
I do.
Good.
My foot is asleep, so it might take me a minute, because it's like...
We did record an episode right before this, so we've been sitting down for a little bit.
My foot...
That really annoying thumping noise is Mackenzie.
My foot
thumping her foot.
Is not waking up. Guam is a U.S. territory located in the Pacific Ocean with a population of about 170,000. Guam got its name from Spanish sailors. They had come to the island and the locals had tried to sell them fruit by calling out Guaham, which means I have, but to the sailors it sounded like Guam. Archaeological evidence shows that people have lived on the island for more than 4,000 years.
Dang.
It became a territory in 1950, which is actually before Alaska and Hawaii became states. And from the Immigration of Nationality Act of 1952, all persons born on the island...
Persons? What in the world?
Sorry. My foot's asleep.
Your foot's asleep, that's why you couldn't pronounce person.
Anyway, and from the Immigration and Nationality Act of 1952, all persons born on the island on or after April 11th, 1899 would be granted U.S. citizenship. But even though they are U.S. citizens, those living on Guam are only able to vote for their governor, local lawmakers, and delegate to the U.S. House of Representatives. So they do not have any say in who becomes president.
I don't think that's fair.
It's not. Guam has the highest per capita consumption of Spam.
Have you had Spam?
Do I look like someone who's had Spam?
I don't know.
I can barely put pepper on my food.
I don't think Spam is spicy.
No, but I know, but that means that I don't have a versatile taste buds.
Yes, that is true.
That's what I'm saying.
Did I tell you, my friend thought that I was allergic to, or that I thought ketchup was spicy. We were at work the other day, and she looks at me, she goes, Lauren, are you the one who thought ketchup was spicy?
I've heard people say that.
I said, girl, I had a spicy margarita with you at happy hour. No, it's not me. And she's like, I could have sworn it was I was like, that is very insulting.
My problem with spicy food is I like the taste of spicy food. I just do not like the sensation that my tongue is going to fall off.
I get that.
So I really want to eat spicy food.
Well, but see, you need to find the food that is the spice that gives it the flavor, not so much the burning sensation.
Well, I definitely like spices.
Spices?
Spices. Yeah,
good,
but I'm
picky.
Pepper. I'm not going to try Spam.
Yeah.
Yeah. So apparently people think that those who live in Guam would be called Guamese. Like us in Virginia are called Virginians, Minnesota are Minnesotians, or Maryland are called Marylanders. I looked those up to be sure. But they are called Chamorros. The Chamorro are the oldest civilization in the North Pacific. I really hope I'm saying that right.
I think so.
I put the pronunciation.
Yeah.
So I really hope I'm saying that right. I apologize if I'm not. They mainly inhabit the islands of Micronesia, which include Guam and Saipan. An interesting fact is that Guam is the farthest place an American can travel without leaving U.S. soil, and you can travel there without a passport. I mean, I guess that makes sense.
Well, yeah, it's a U.S. territory.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Tipping for services is not expected nor encouraged. Tips are usually already included in the bill.
Which should just be a thing we do here.
Right, I think most other places do that.
Yeah, they do. Other countries, they don't take tips, and it's kind of insulting if you do tip.
Yeah.
And all the taxes and everything are included in the final price of what you pay at the register. So if it says like $2.15, you're paying $2.15.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
About 1/3 of the island is owned by the U.S. Armed Forces. So a quote-unquote cool thing is that there are 2 shipwrecks in the water where the ships are stacked on top of each other. One of the ships was sunken during World War I and the other during World War II.
So they're literally on top of each other.
Yeah.
In the same part of the water. That's so cool.
That is cool. Lauren wrote these.
I write all the state facts. And so sometimes I'm like, that's just a really cool fact.
So when I said I also saw it, she saw it.
I saw.
I just read it. The Talafofo Bay is one of the 4 beaches in the world that has green sand. Eroding volcanic terrain nearby that is rich in the mineral olivine gives the sand its greenish color.
That's really cool.
Mm-hmm. There's black sand.
Mm-hmm.
I forget where.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
And there's like blue sand and pink sand and stuff.
Yeah. The island of Guam is actually shaped like a footprint. And their beaches aren't made up of sand, but rather of coral. Ouch.
No, but it's like, you know how
Like
sand is like
finely
rocks
grained.
and yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
isn't that cool?
That is cool. Guam also has a gravity hill. What's that?
One of those hills where you park, you put your car in neutral, and then it's uphill, but your car will naturally move uphill like you would going downhill. There's some in Virginia and stuff.
Huh.
Yeah.
There you go. Located just 200 miles off the coast of Guam is the Mariana Trench. We talk about this in class. The deepest part of the ocean in the world. It is 7 miles deep. You can fit Mount Everest in it.
Ew.
Mm-hmm. They also have Mount Lam Lam, which is a part of the Mariana Trench. It goes from the top all the way down. Gotta be specific.
Yeah, but like part of the mountain is underwater, and
Right.
part of that mountain, kind of the downward part of the mountain, goes into the Mariana Trench.
Right.
So technically considered part of the same mountain.
Right.
Yes.
Anyway, it rises 1,332 feet above sea level. But the distance from the peak of this mountain, which is a part of the trench, is said to be the greatest change in elevation on Earth over such a short distance. Their popular slogan is "Where the American Day Begins," because this is the place where the sun first rises on American soil. Guam is overrun with dangerous and invasive brown snakes. They are mildly venomous. There are an estimated 2 million snakes on this island. The island has a lot of legends, but the big one is Two Lovers Point. I was going to say 2 lovers, but okay.
That is the word.
It made sense in my head. But a big one is Two Lovers Point, which is also a popular tourist attraction. The story goes that 2 young star-crossed lovers tied their hair and jumped off the cliff together.
Yeah.
There's also mermaids.
There are also legends of mermaids. I know, I thought that was
I
interesting.
think I remember seeing something in my reading about that.
The 2 lovers?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was in a lot of places.
Yeah.
All right.
So, Lauren, what you talking about today?
So, like we said, Guam was a bit hard to find things to talk about.
A little bit.
And there was nothing true crime. So I guess that's a good thing.
Now, there was a lot of like ghost stories, haunted places, but every time I went to go look up like the history of the place, I couldn't find anything.
Yeah.
I could only find why it's considered
Yep,
haunted.
exactly. So, like Mackenzie just said, there are haunted places, but only a few hauntings at each of those places. But all throughout my research of trying to find something, I kept coming upon a legend/cryptid. So I know we've been doing a lot of paranormal things lately and not so many true crime things, but again, I will be doing another paranormal thing. So today I will be talking about the legend of the Taotaomona.
Mm-hmm.
So the Taotaomona are the spirits of ancient inhabitants of Guam, and that name loosely translates to people before history or ancient people.
Oh, that's cool.
They're the ancestral spirits that are still here on Earth, residing alongside the living. The Taotaomona have been respected in Guam. It is believed that they provide both daily protection and assistance, but they can also cause danger and problems. The ancient Chamorro, or Chamoras, believed that these spirits helped build houses, raise families, and plant and harvest crops, all through a harmonious cooperation between the Chamoras and the spirits of their ancestors. There's a lot of words in here, so it's going to be real interesting. But over time, the relationship between the Chamoras and the spirits have changed and developed, in large part due to the cultural changes that came about from Spanish colonization as well as Christianization. So like Christianity.
Mm-hmm.
The view on the Taotaomonas changed from just being the spirits of ancestors to being ghosts, devils, and demons who are set on playing tricks and causing harm. So today, they can be defined in 3 different ways, and each definition comes from the familiarity and distance between the spirits and the living Chamorros. The first category is elders and family. So under this category, the term Taotaomona just refers to all of the spirits of Chamorro ancestors, those who have come before. These spirits play a huge role in the daily life of Chamorros by providing assistance and protection as they go about their daily lives. The Taotaomonas, I'm going to call them the TTMs, were treated as members of the family and were usually referred to by their actual name or through other forms of endearment. These spirits are believed to dwell on the land of their descendants or find other ways to inhabit this area. They sometimes will live in the ancestral skulls, which Chamoras keep in baskets in their homes.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah, these skulls are offered food and drinks at mealtime and offered the best fish when the fishermen return. They are honored for keeping the family safe, strong, and prosperous. Ceremonies are held to celebrate the spirits as well. These spirits are often called on should the family be experiencing any great danger. So they truly are the protectors, the good ones you want. The next category is those who came before. These are the ancestors of Chamoras who are no longer able to connect themselves through using genealogy, so ones who are just too far back.
Interesting, okay.
These spirits can only be communicated to and with through an intermediary such as a makana, also known as a spirits counselor or medicine man. A family may go to a makana if their family was experiencing bad luck in a way to ask what they have done to upset their ancestors, if they, did something sinful, or if there was something that they did that was disrespectful. Because the familial connection is always known with these spirits, they aren't talked to in a familiar or endearing way, but rather spoken to with great respect. And a lot of times they're referred to, instead of like, my love or whatever, they're usually referred to as grandma and grandpa, or like grandmother and grandfather.
Interesting.
These spirits are also sometimes described as being more gentle spirits and actually aid local sharuhanas or sharuhanas, which are doctors or medicine men, so like the local healers.
Mm-hmm.
These are the spirits who you are calling out to and asking permission from when you enter into a jungle or into their land.
Oh, interesting.
It is claimed that one must request permission from these spirits in a very respectful way before entering the jungle or taking fruits, flowers, leaves, or wood from it. If permission is not asked for, TTMs are known to pinch and bruise people. They are known to imitate voices of loved ones of those in the jungle, maybe in a way to further confuse the person and get them lost. And they are known to kidnap children.
Oh my god.
Just for short periods of time, but that's still kidnapping.
Yeah.
The following should be said when asking permission to enter or pass an area. Grandmother and grandfather, excuse us. May we walk through and visit your land, and when you come to our land, we will welcome you to do the same.
I like that.
The following should be said before relieving yourself in the jungle. Grandmother and grandfather, may I use the restroom here? When you come to my land, you may do the same.
Oh, I thought you meant like leaving. I didn't hear the...
Relieving.
Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was a very interesting thing to specify, but I guess that's good.
I mean...
It makes sense.
You're peeing on someone's land.
Yeah. So the next part is from Guampedia.com under the section of asking for permission. I'm just going to read it straight as it says. It would be too hard to accurately paraphrase. Quote, ancient Chamorro history provides the names of a few of these remote ancestral spirits whom Chamoras know they were related to, but did not treat with the same intimacy that they did their relatives that had recently passed away. And I really do apologize for all the words I'm not going to be able to pronounce. Fuuna and Putan, the brother and sister who created Guam in the story of Chamorro origins, could be considered the Fine Nina and Taotao, first people, and therefore the first Taotaomona. Around the time of the Spanish colonization of Guam, they were notoriously strong Taotaomona, which Chamorros revered and feared around Guam. This is the part that I just did not know. Okay. Gansom Octopus was a Taotaomona who lived in Bagu Bay near the latte site. So lattes are large stone structures which are unique to Guam. He was known as an incredibly strong spirit who could catch 5 gahin fish at once with only his hands and great coconut by squeezing its shell until it came spraying out. Gatos, 100, was a Taotaomona who was known for his large penis. He would travel with other spirits, which served as his soldiers, who would use Gato's penis when crossing rivers.
Oh my god! It's a penis bridge.
If you entered into Gato's territory without permission and were to disrespect him by urinating there, he would touch his penis to you, and you would be unable to urinate or defecate. See why I couldn't paraphrase this any differently?
Oh my god.
Anu Fat was a big, ugly Taotaomona. He had large fangs and nails. On the side of his body was a huge gaping wound, out of which grew a galak dankalu, a type of large fern.
Oh.
End quote.
Ficus name fern.
A ficus named fern. But yeah, so I thought the whole penis thing was very interesting.
Penis bridge.
Yeah, penis bridge. And I just wanted to talk about it. Okay. Then
I'm so glad you did.
And then the last category is those who are evil and cruel. So this describes more how the Taotaomona are viewed today, pesky, troublesome, and sometimes evil. These ones are seen as the spirits who hurt people and will play tricks on them. They can't be trusted at all, but rather they are feared. Dehendes are one type of Taotaomona. They are small, dwarf-like people who either go naked or wear clothes made of leaves. They are best known for luring unsuspecting children into the jungle. They will take on the shape of a red fan-tailed bird and start singing songs to these children. They may also offer them small gifts and treats to lure them in. Once the child is lured, the Duhende will capture the child and shrink them down to such a small size that those looking for them will never be able to see or find them.
Honey, I shrunk the kids.
Yeah. But once the child is eventually found, they will usually suffer from Chidnot Man. This means that the child will just stare into space with a blank and empty look on their face.
Oh.
The only way they can be cured is by being taken to a priest or a Sharhanas, which are like the medicine men people. These certain spirits usually haunt or are associated with certain areas or objects. One of these is the Banyan Tree, which is a very weird-looking tree. They picked these trees specifically because it is said that they have roots that move and that change direction every night.
Oh.
Those who enter these areas without asking permission or who are being disrespectful will be subject to the anger and tricks of these spirits. Sometimes a spirit will be linked to an area where they experienced a violent and tragic death. So these Taotaomonas are able to shape-shift and take on different shapes in order to interact with the living. A famous one is the large white-tailed bird that has a shrill call. This call is heard throughout a village every time an unmarried girl becomes pregnant.
Dun, 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 called out.
Yeah, I know. There is a belief that the Taotaomona do not like pregnant women. Pregnant women are told that if you need to go into the woods, they should wear perfume to mask their scent, or they must wear their husband's clothes.
Or they're not supposed to go out at night. I read that too.
Yeah, but oftentimes, pregnant women are warned to stay inside at night to keep them away. Those Taotaomona also appear as humans or in close to human form. They will even sometimes take on the appearance of a loved one or family member, but other times they may appear without a head or without a face. Sometimes they may have an alluring smell, but other times their smell may be absolutely repulsive. They are evil, so some also have the ability to cause a living person to fall incredibly ill. They do this by either biting, touching, or pinching the specific person. If you have been touched somehow with the intent to make you ill, you will notice finger, nail, or teeth marks on your body in colors of either yellow, purple, or brown. If the spirit wants to make you ill, they can either make you feverishly sick, turn you into a zombie and put you into a deep trance, or cause swelling in different parts of your body.
I heard headaches.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Some can even control the weather. Those are known as lam tata, and they will change and shape weather in ways to scare the living. These Taotaomona are so feared that Chamoras will do whatever they can to avoid contact with one. Some colors are actually said to repel them, while other colors will attract them.
Is red one of them?
Yeah.
Ha!
But it says which color does what really depends on the specific spirit you're dealing with.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Salt is also thought to weaken them, which is why they're usually found inland in the jungles and not on the coast near the salt water. There is a story that goes that a man was once possessed by a Taotaomona and was unbeatable in wrestling. Well, before a match one day, his opponent sprinkled salt around the ring, and the opponent ended up winning the match. Money, sacred religious items, and even churches are thought to be objects and places where Taotaomona cannot stand to be touched or even be near. But I was able to find some stories that talk about these. There wasn't a ton of information on them overall, but there were some stories, so that is what I'm going to read. So this was on a webpage called postguam.com, and this first one was from someone named Mariam Rupley. So in this story, the Taotaomonas were also referred to as the Dehendes, which I talked about earlier. And Mariam said that they are mischievous creatures who like to play tricks on people who have stepped on wild mushrooms or people enter the forest without first asking permission. So on this particular night, Mariam is helping her daughter with a school project. The project was to come up with a way to trap duendes and to make a model of that trap. Her daughter's idea was to hang a basket full of snacks on a tree branch, but under the basket would be a hole covered with leaves, so that when one of the spirits went to grab the basket, they would fall in the hole and get trapped. So, like a child, her daughter waited until the day before it was due. They worked on the construction and all was good. All that was left was that they needed some leaves, and at that point it was about 6 p.m. Mariam says, quote, "If you grew up on Guam, you knew not to pick flowers or leaves during dusk, because that was the hour that the Taotaomona roamed the area. Well, Mariam knew the project was due the next day, so she went out quickly, grabbed some leaves, came back inside, and again, all was good. They finished the project, set it aside, and ate dinner. As Mariam and her family were getting ready for bed, she heard the cabinets in the kitchen open and close. She thought that was weird because there wasn't really anything in the kitchen that would be able to open and close cabinets. After ignoring it, a few minutes later, she began to hear knocking on her window. She looked outside, but nothing was there. Then hours later, she heard what she believed to be the sound of kids laughing in her living room. Thinking that maybe she had left the TV on, Mariam walked to the TV and checked, but nope, it was off. So she just ignored all of these terrifying things and tried to go to bed.
As one does.
Right. But as she was in bed, out of the corner of her eye, she saw something move, then heard the laughter again.
Ugh.
But this time it wasn't out of the living room. It sounded much closer. She tried to, again, ignore it and go back to sleep, but that's when she heard it one more time. Exasperated, she looked up at her ceiling and saw above her, on the ceiling, small childlike creatures moving through the shadows. She closed her eyes and started to pray, but the laughter kept getting louder, and she could now sense that something was close to her.
Oh, I'm getting goosebumps.
She jumped out of bed, grabbed her phone, and called her sister, who just so happened to live right above her. She explained the whole situation, and her sister called their mom and aunt, who then came over to Marian's house. As she was describing what was happening and what she saw, her aunt interrupted her and said, "Those aren't babies you're seeing, they're duendes. You made a trap to catch them and picked leaves when you weren't supposed to." Her aunt burned some palm leaves, ones that had actually been blessed on Palm Sunday, and allowed the smoke to go into all the rooms of Miriam's apartment. Her aunt then dipped these leaves in a mixture of holy water and coconut oil. She then rubbed that mixture all over Miriam and told her to go outside and apologize to the iba tree, the one she had taken the leaves from. I guess that helped, but Marian says that even to this day, she gets chills when she looks at the tree. She keeps her distance and doesn't pick anything after dark. The next story was from a poster by the username of WRH1969. And on this website, it would describe what the person, their demographic. So it was described as a middle-aged adult. So this guy served with the Air Force in Guam from July 2007 to July 2010. His first story happened, I guess, right when he got there on July 2nd, 2007. When he first got there, he had made friends with some locals and had heard many of the stories about the Taotaomonas. He said, quote, "Whenever a person enters a forest, sacred place, or religious site, they have to ask permission from the land or Taotaomonas that reside there. I was told if you don't speak Chamara, that it was okay as long as you ask permission in your language to enter the area." So he and his family decided to take a riverboat tour of the rivers of Guam. They started the tour around 1 p.m. In the middle of the tour, they visited a village that was set up like they had gone back 1,000 years. Once they got off the boat, the tour guide told them that they needed to ask permission to enter the forest and the village. If they didn't, they may get pinched or scratched. So the guy, we'll call him W, got off the boat and immediately felt strange, but he had asked permission 2 times before he stepped into the forest. As they were walking through the forest, he said it felt as if someone was watching him really intensely. And he said that whoever was watching him was really mad. Every single person on the boat tour said they had felt something different as they were walking through the forest. His skeptical wife even started to believe in the Taotaomonas after their trip.
Wow.
So our guy W had another story while living in Guam. One summer night, he was out walking his dog named Mr. Wiener around the neighborhood.
Please tell me it was a wiener dog.
I really hope so. And they were walking on the base he lived on. His neighbor had a Taotaomona tree on his property, and that just happens to be the direction that the guy and his dog started walking in. The guy W had heard of the stories surrounding the tree and the bad reactions that people have had with it. He had heard stories and heard people say that if you stepped on the roots of the tree, you had to say sorry. If you didn't say sorry, you could get really sick, could get a bad scratch, or bad luck, all from not giving the tree respect. W and his dog started towards the tree.
Could you imagine if, especially in America, if we had the same kind of respect for nature that these guys do?
Right. Yes. Yeah. We have absolutely none of that.
How this world would be different.
There's a movie that I really want you to watch. It's called Midsommar, and it's the one with they go to and one guy disrespects one of their trees, and it's really, really bad.
Don't disrespect the tree.
So W and his dog started walking towards the tree, and the air immediately got cold around him. He was focused on the cold air until he noticed that his dog was disrespecting the tree and peeing on it. Mr. Wiener, though, immediately started dragging W back home, tail between his legs, hair on his back standing up. That night, while sleeping, W awoke to a weight on his chest. For 15 to 20 seconds, he was unable to breathe, couldn't move, could do nothing.
Wow. That's terrifying.
But finally, after about 15 to 20 seconds, he was able to move again. This woke him up completely, and he started looking around his house because something just didn't feel right. It said he felt like he was being watched. He prayed, went back to bed, held his wife's hand, and fell asleep. She, again, had already been a believer at this point. Another user, Taotaomona, a young adult, told about how it's unsafe to be out after 6 p.m. alone. Her mother used to tell her that at night there would be ancient Chamorro spirits walking all around Guam at 6 p.m. called the Taotaomona. Tate, as we will call her, had seen a shadow that night, one that only she could see, and had told her mom. Their mom said that the spirits, didn't like it when people were loud during their time, that after 6 p.m. time. She said that if someone is loud and disrupting them, they pinch those loud people or make them sick. Sometimes people die.
I sometimes want to pinch loud people.
Too bad that's not accepted around here.
I know, right?
Tate had another experience after dark with seeing a shadow outside. They said that since then, they had never ridden their bike after 6 p.m. ever again. So I didn't want to bog this episode down with a ton of stories of the Taotaomonas, but if you're interested in hearing more tales and experiences from people, there are a lot of videos on YouTube that go into the experiences people have had with these creatures.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. So those are the Taotaomona, which I hope I am pronouncing correctly. If not, I really did try, and I really do apologize.
I have a story with one of those myself.
All right. What
Yeah.
are you telling
There's
us,
two
Mackenzie?
stories. So, like we said in the beginning, a lot of haunted locations that sounded like they had really cool stories with them, but when trying to figure out the history behind them, it was very difficult to find anything. So,
Yes.
I decided to cover some Guam ghost stories.
Okay.
So, I'm going to retell some stories told by people who have lived in Guam at some point. These ghosts made visits to their homes or sometimes their place of work. I'm going to do my best to make sure I get all the details of the story without retelling it verbatim, like how the original story was
That's
told.
what I tried to do, yeah.
I do add in some embellishes for some pizzazz, but, it doesn't take away from the meaning of the story.
Yeah.
So, and then anything that I say that someone has said is a direct quote from the story that I found. Everything else is kind of more or less in my own words.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Story number 1. Susan is a teacher, and in her free time, she volunteers in the pediatrics ward at the local hospital. She would refill water, ice, or change blankets for the patients. There was one patient, a young girl, whom Susan would visit last during her rounds. The girl's eyes were covered with gauze, so she could not see, but that did not stop her from asking Susan to play ball with her. Susan, of course, agreed and would tell the girl which hand to catch the ball with. They would play catch each night for about 15 minutes.
It's really impressive to be able to catch a ball when you can't see.
I know, right? One day, when Susan got to the hospital, she noticed that doctors and nurses were in the little girl's room. Susan learned that the little girl had passed away. The little girl's mother was so distraught by her daughter's passing that she wouldn't let go of her. The doctors asked if Susan would talk with the mother since she had a relationship with the family. Susan got the mother to finally agree to let go of her daughter, and the mother wanted Susan to be the one to take the gauze off the little girl's eyes. She said that Susan was the only one who took the time to play with her daughter. As Susan took off the gauze, she saw a peaceful little girl who looked as if she was sleeping. Then, the little girl's eyes opened and she said, "Thank you for playing with ball with me." Then the eyes closed again. This occurred after the little girl was pronounced dead.
Ugh.
And Susan seemed to be the only one who had seen what had happened.
I read that story and it still gave me chills.
The bond between Susan and this little girl lasted long after the girl had passed. Susan recalls seeing the little girl in her classroom as she was grading papers. Susan was quite afraid, but she calmly and nicely asked the little girl to leave and not bother her.
Aww.
The little girl thanks Susan again and then disappears. Susan still sees her from time to time, but she's no longer afraid of when the little girl comes to visit.
Aw.
Oh, that was a cute story.
Yeah.
Story number 2. Rule number 2. I can't let people back from the dead.
That took me a second. I was like, what is that from? And I was like, that accent.
If you know, you know. When Ronisha was 12 years old, she was visiting with her grandmother. Her mother, and her brother had traveled to Dehendes to spend the day with her. As they were sitting around the kitchen table, Ronisha became tired and asked her mom if they could go home. Her mother said it wasn't time yet, so Ronisha decided to go lay down in the car to get some rest, which I would never do.
No.
Even not in Guam.
No. I would, never do that.
Ronisha laid down in the back seat of the car with her head behind the driver's seat and her feet behind the passenger's. As Ronisha was closing her eyes to rest, she heard someone approaching the car. She had assumed it was her brother and took a peek to look. She saw her brother standing on the passenger's side and looking into the window. She thought he was trying to scare her, so she closed her eyes to continue resting. Even with her eyes closed, she still had the sense that someone was watching her. But when Roshina opened her eyes to look, she no longer saw her brother at the passenger window. She quickly turned around and saw him staring at her through the back window.
Ew.
His face and his hands were on the glass, but she couldn't make out his face because it was so dark. Ronisha was still confident it was just her brother trying to scare her, but she did start to feel uneasy about the situation. With her eyes closed, she whispered to herself, "Okay, I'm going to count to 3, and then he should be gone." When Ronisha opened her eyes, her brother was gone. I feel like I keep saying her name different ways.
You only said it differently once so far. We've had Renisha, and then we had like Rowishon or something. I don't know.
Ronisha, if you're listening, I'm sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Infuriated with her brother's antics, she got out of the car and stormed back into her grandmother's house, yelling at her brother that his jokes were not funny at all. Meanwhile, Ronisha's brother RJ was staring at Ronisha in complete confusion, indicating to Ronisha that he had no clue what she was referring to. Growing more frustrated, she asked, "Why were you trying to scare me in the car while I was trying to sleep?" "Shaw," RJ calmly replied, "I wasn't at the car. I've been here the whole time." Ronisha, stunned into silence, looked to her mother and grandmother for confirmation. Her mother and grandmother confirmed that her brother had indeed never left the table. Her grandmother asked if she could see the person's face, and Ronisha couldn't make out a face, only that he was wearing a white shirt like her brother was. Fearing that someone was roaming around the property, her brother RJ went to check things out, but he couldn't find anything or find anyone lurking around.
Mm-hmm.
Later that evening, when Ronisha was trying to go to bed, she felt a tickling sensation on her feet. She tried to ignore the sensation, which when I read that, I was like, I don't know if I'm just the most ticklish person on the planet.
You would have knocked out the person.
I would have kicked the ever-living shit out of whoever is tickling my feet.
You would have, yes.
How can you ignore that?
Also, why do so many people ignore creepy things? They're like, oh, this creepy thing is happening. I'm going to just ignore it.
I feel like it's got to be the same idea. Like when you put your blanket over your head, you're safe.
Yeah, that could be.
You know? I don't know.
Yeah, but...
Well, she tried to ignore this sensation, but then she felt as if someone was caressing her long hair.
Nope.
The hair on her arms began to stand, and she ran to her dad and explained what had just happened. Her father told her that it was most likely a gentle Taotaomona spirit. He blessed a palm leaf in Ronisha's room, and she was finally able to sleep. The tickling and caressing continued after that night. Sometimes Ronisha would wake up with bruises on her legs, but they would never hurt. Her father told her that means the spirit likes her and she shouldn't be afraid. I would be fucking terrified.
Yeah.
Ronisha began sleeping with palm leaves on her window and a rosary hung from her door. Ronisha wasn't afraid, and soon the nightly visits stopped. That hasn't stopped Ronisha from sleeping with a rosary hanging from her door, just in case.
Yeah. Can't blame her.
Nope. I'd move.
Just up and move.
I'd just be gone. The amount of times that I would just move. Story number 3.
Do you know the third rule? From Aladdin?
Make people fall in love. I think.
Maybe. Sounds good.
Did you wake me up? Did you rub my lamp? We're out of here.
Mackenzie has this special skill where she can recite almost every single word in Mulan.
Oh, I'm so good at it.
And she likes to show her skill off every time we watch Mulan.
I physically am incapable of watching that movie without saying everything.
So one day we turned the subtitles off and we made Mackenzie see if she could
Still
nail
got it.
everything. And yes, she actually still did.
Nailed it.
It was not as annoying as you might think, but it was impressive.
All right. Story number 3. Kimberly was 9 years old when she had a traumatic experience with an evil spirit. Kimberly and her family went to her aunt's house for a family barbecue. Kimberly had hoped that this would be a wonderful memory to look back on one day, and said she remembers this day as one of the most terrifying of her life.
Aw.
The family was spending time inside watching TV, eating snacks, and playing games. Kimberly kept having this feeling that someone was watching her. Kimberly peered down the hallway and noticed a completely black figure floating there. She could tell the figure was a woman because she could see her hair floating around her. However, Kimberly could not see any other features or a face. The figure began to move. It looked back and then flew through the door. Kimberly, frozen in shock, did not even notice her brother Daniel had come to tell her that it was time to leave. As her family was getting into the car, Kimberly's father was poking fun at her mom, asking her why she felt the need to poke him while he slept in the hammock. Kimberly's mother replied, "I didn't touch you. Why am I going to poke you when I could just slap you?" I love that. Because it's so true.
Yes, it is.
Kimberly's dad was very confused. He looked around and stared at the tree where he had been sleeping. Kimberly's mother asked if everything was all right. With fear in his voice, her father said, "Just get in the car. Don't look near the tree or else she's going to try to hurt you. Just get in the car and we'll leave." Kimberly's dad sped away from her aunt's house. Kimberly could see the spirit screaming and chasing after them.
Ew.
Gets crazier. Once they were home, Kimberly's dad ordered the family into the house. They did as they were told, and Kimberly could see her father yelling at the dark spirit. Kimberly asked her mother what was going on. Her mother told her that sometimes her father can see things that other people can't. They blessed a palm leaf and tried to find anything red that they could burn, which is why I asked you about the red.
And it seems like palm leaves are a big thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Kimberly's mother told them that this spirit had fallen in love with their father and wanted to take him away. They started to hear what sounded like large rocks being slammed onto their tin roof. They ran outside and Kimberly saw her father being squeezed by the lady. He kept yelling at the spirit to leave him alone. Kimberly's mother told her and her brother to run around the house and say, "No one is stronger than God. He is the protector of our house." Kimberly was gripped with fear that she would lose her father, so she did as her mother told her.
Mhm.
The house began to shake and rattle. The evil spirit lady screams with anger. The family continued trying to banish the spirit, calling out prayers and demanding it go away. Eventually, the loud noises began to fade and the evil spirit was gone. The air around them felt good again. Kimberly's mom put her father to sleep on the couch and the family was able to finally rest. When they talked about the experience later, Kimberly learned that her father grew up being able to see the evil spirits. Her mother and her brother couldn't see anything, but they could hear all the commotion that was happening. They believe that Kimberly could see it because she was so young. They say that ghosts and angels will reveal themselves to the innocent. Kimberly still lives in fear that she may see the lady again. She prays every night in hopes of keeping her away.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's sad.
I know. That one was the sad one. This one's kind of not funny, but like nicer.
Yeah.
Story number 4. There's just 3 rules.
Okay.
Can't wish for more wishes. Can't make somebody fall in love, and you can't bring people back from the dead.
You are such a dork.
That's why I'm friends with you.
Yeah.
All right, so kind of like the same thing that Lauren did, because we got our stuff from the same website. This person's username is Goiza1216. We're going to call her G.
Okay.
From 2004 to 2006, G was stationed at a naval base in Guam. Out of her entire stay, her last night in Guam would be the one she never forgot.
Of course.
Right. G lived in Barracks 9 on the top floor. She shared the space with another woman. G's roommate was never around because she was usually staying with her boyfriend. G worked as a police officer and got to know some of the locals who worked the front gates. These locals loved to tell tales of the spirits of the island, which was the...
Taotaomona?
That. If these spirits liked you, then they only played minor pranks on you, but if they didn't, they would give you headaches and could make you sick. Another officer in the Navy had died a few months after G had gotten to the base. He suffered from headaches that doctors couldn't seem to medically diagnose.
Uh-oh.
This man's headaches got so bad that they gave him morphine for the pain, and one tragic night when the headaches were so awful, the officer was given too much medicine and overdosed.
Oh, no.
His memorial hangs proudly in the MAs, which is, I looked it up, Master at Arms,
Okay.
which is the police in the Navy.
Okay.
Headquarters.
Okay. We got there eventually.
Yep. G's experience, thankfully, was not as tragic as this man's. However, it was rather frightening. G had received her orders to her new duty station. Everything was all packed up and shipped. She had just enough with her to last a month. She had been woken by a noise. She was half awake when she realized that the noise she heard was herself. G seemed to be talking to someone in her sleep.
Ew. No.
I've developed a new habit where my arms flail.
Oh, good. So mixed with your laughter in your sleep and your arms flailing.
And I only realized that I have this new thing because when I slept with my cousins, she made me sleep on the inside and I kept hitting the wall. So.
Good. So a danger to sleep next to.
Yeah. I've clapped before and woke myself up.
Keen, like, did that, like, shock you?
I was a little confused.
Yeah. Like, what the hell just happened?
Yeah. G seemed to be talking to someone in her sleep. She could hear herself saying, "No, I can't," almost as if she was refusing some sort of invitation. All of a sudden, G felt this immense pressure on her shoulders, the sensation of a strong force pinning her down on her bed. The sensation frightened G so much it finally caused her to be fully awake. When she woke, the sensation was gone and no one else was in the room. Prior to this experience, G had a feeling that something else occupied the space besides her. She would never look in a mirror, even while she was brushing her teeth. She felt that if she did, then she would see who was watching her.
That's what I get freaked out. Like, I'll freak myself out. I'll be washing my face, so, like, when you can't open your eyes, and I'm like,
oh my God,
there's something behind me.
The amount of times that I'm like, something is standing behind me right now.
Yep, and then I'll just, like, open my eyes without washing the soap because I just can't wait to wash it all off.
Yep.
Often.
All the time. A friend of G's who was able to see some spirits told G that she could see a shadow-like figure walking around her room. Could the shadow figure be the force that was holding G down that night? G had her own theory about the events that happened that night. Quote, whatever was in my room knew I was leaving the next day. I think it was making a last effort to convince me to stay. Because it liked me there. I had refused the offer because I had my orders, and in a very last attempt, it wanted to force me to stay. I don't think it wanted to hurt me. I just think it was tired of having to deal with so many young single sailors who only wanted to be loud and get drunk. I was a quiet and calm guest in its house.
Aw, that's kind of sweet.
Yeah. So those are my 4 Guam ghostly stories.
So yeah, it is a quite haunted little island.
It is. It's very haunted. If you're from Guam or know things about Guam and you have like a true crime story or something,
Or even any other paranormal stories.
yeah, we would love some help because unfortunately it was very difficult to find.
And when we do circle back around to places, we do remember the states and like the places that don't have a ton. So circling back around is sometimes a little difficult,
Yes.
which we will start to notice in the future.
Well, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it.
We will cross when we get to it.
The penis bridge.
The penis bridge.
We'll cross that penis bridge when we get to it.
Well, if you have any scary stories or true crime experiences or anything, please email us at ascarystatepodcast@gmail.com. What are our socials, Kenzie?
Instagram at A Scary State Podcast. Facebook, the page is A Scary State Podcast. Twitter at A Scary State Pod. And our website, ascarystate.squarespace.com.
Yeah, so I think that's all. Rate and review us on all the things.
Tell your friends, tell your family.
Everyone. We have some fun stuff in the works that we are working on.
Yes.
So hopefully we can start talking about that soon.
Which means you're actually going to have to go on our website and look at stuff because that's where it's going to be.
Yes. So I think that's all.
That is all.
So stay scary.
Stay safe.